Yes. So welcome to Information Systems Consulting for Fall 2024. So today I'm going to do two things. I'm going to run through the syllabus, and then I'm also going to discuss the project. There's going to be a group project, and you will be divided into teams of 10. Now, what I'm going to do is to allow you, I've already set up the groups, and I'm sorry, what I'm going to do is to allow you to join groups of 5. So I want you to make groups of 5. So you can have 5 of your friends. Then I will join 2 groups of 5 to make a group of 10. Everybody with me so far? So we're really going to have groups of 10, but I'm going to use a hybrid approach. So you get to choose a group of 5, right? So you self-enroll in the groups, join a group of 5 with you and your friends, and then I will combine 2 groups of 5 to make a group of 10, right? Now, the project is extremely important. I just want to jump straight into the project. I'll talk about it more later, but the project is extremely important because the project is 70% of your course grade, right? It's 70% of your course grade. So I really want you guys to be very, very serious and intentional about the project. All right, well, let's start from the start. I'm David Simmons. I'm from Jamaica. I did my bachelor's and master's in Jamaica at the University of West Indies. And then I came to Norfolk, Virginia, went to Norfolk, Virginia, and did my PhD in IT. But it's basically the same thing as IS, really. There's really no difference. Um, so I taught for 6 years in Georgia, and now I'm here in Montgomery, and I've been teaching here for basically a year and 1 semester. Um, all right, and it's my pleasure to teach you information systems consulting. Um, I have 15 years of industry experience. I've been a programmer, systems analyst, senior systems analyst, um, database administrator, and IT manager 3 times, right? So I have a fair amount of experience in industry, right? And I've talked to more than 1 or 2 consultants in my uh, experience. All right, now let me see if I can find this share screen situation. I'm still getting used to this Canvas thing. I went through a training course before, but yeah, I'm still kind of getting familiar with it. All right, if you will, please bring up the syllabus in your own window. Does everybody have access to the syllabus? I'm really looking to see where I can share the screen, but forget where you do the share screen, manage layout, options, full screen settings, meeting. Yeah, some people are thinking that Canvas is not so intuitive. That it could be a lot more intuitive. Anyway, all right, let's make the most of it. All right, so big presenter. All right, people. So can you guys see the syllabus? Does everybody have access to the syllabus? All right, so I'm kind of going to go through the syllabus verbally in case you can't see it. I'm trying to share it, trying to share the screen. But of course, it's in the syllabus section, obviously, right? Um, all right, anyway, let's talk about the syllabus. So of course, it's an online course, and so therefore, I'm going to be making recordings. What I'll really be doing is to make a recording of the face-to-face class, and I will share it with you. Now, what I'm probably going to do is on Tuesdays, I will teach the face-to-face class, and then on Thursdays we're going to do teamwork, right? We're going to do teamwork, but of course they will still have to meet outside of class in order to get the work done, right? But Thursday just going to be an opportunity for them to work on it in class so that I can, come over to their group and see what they're doing, and in case they need some help on the spot. All right, very good. So, all right, so it's information systems consulting, and it's gonna run from now until December. Now, there's an office phone, but the truth is that you can get me on my cell phone much more easily. Yeah. All right. Or you can use my email. Now, it turns out one advantage of Canvas though is that if you send a message on Canvas, it will actually come to my email and I will see it there. So I will actually get your Canvas message pretty quickly. Okay, good. Office hours are going to be 12:30 to 3:30, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's going to be a hybrid office hours. I will be in my office in those on those within those 3 hours, and then I will be meeting people online, but also meeting people face to face, right? So bear with me if you connect and I'm seeing somebody at the time, right? I've said the same thing to this face to face class. All right, very good. So what's this course about? What is the point of this course? Why are we making you take this course, or why have you signed up for this course? So consulting is a very, very lucrative field if you can get into it, right? It's very hard to get into. But consulting is one of the top paying fields in IS. Well, one of the top paying careers in IS, right? And it just so happens that people your age are typically the consultants. People my age, I'm too old to become a consultant, right? Because to be a consultant, you have to be not only super smart, which I am, more or less, but also very young, full of energy, and just have non-stop energy, right? You can work for 48 hours straight without stopping, right? So, so yeah, it's a very, very lucrative field. There's glamorous lifestyle, lots of travel, fine hotels, per diem. You get lunch money every day, a fair bit of lunch money every day. And you get to travel to new and different places, and it's really a fantastic lifestyle. All right, now, so let's talk more about the course description. It's designed to help you to um, find consulting jobs, know consulting practices, and you learn how to manage requirements analysis and business process engineering. So requirements analysis and business process reengineering will look somewhat similar if you're doing systems analysis and design, right? But we're taking a different approach. We're taking an extremely business focused approach where we're ensuring that the business is either more efficient or more effective. More efficient saves the business money. More effective means we can put out more product in the same time with the same resources and generate more revenue, right? Now, remember, fundamentally, the point of business is to make a profit. So, um, so obviously, a profit is, as you know, it's the difference between your revenue, right? The inflow of cash and your expenses, which is the outflow of cash. So if you can increase the efficiency of your processes, then you're going to decrease the outflow of cash. If you can be more effective, produce more, generate more revenue, then you're increasing the income of cash, right? And that creates a wider profit margin or a profit margin in cases where there is none. All right, very good. We're also going to look at system selection. We're going to create a systems analysis, a system selection framework, and we'll use it to score systems for suitability, right? We're also going to look at implementation, use, and maintenance of the system, right? Because those are also extremely important. We moved away from a world where people write information systems, where people actually create programs inside of the organization for create information systems, but inside the organization. We really don't do that anymore, right? In the 90s, 80s, 90s, every company was creating a system because computers were the new thing, and to be competitive, everybody knew you needed a good information system. But that did not work out. What we found is that mostly, most of the times, the systems were over budget, 2 times over budget, 3 times over budget, right? You budget 2 million, you're spending 6 million. Many times, this system just did not get launched at all, right? Um, and then many times the system just did not do what it was supposed to do. So nowadays we we are using a different model where essentially what we're doing is to let the system vendors, people dedicated to developing systems, right? And of course, a lot of them have outsourced to India, right? And I hear, um, you know, where was it? Well, there was a city in India that all the outsourcing used to go to, and now I hear it's going to Hyderabad, right? Because the whole point is to save money by outsourcing, and apparently the previous city got very expensive. Which city was it? Starts with B. Is it Bombay? Uh, but anyway, yeah. So what we do now is we let system vendors write these systems, these industry specific systems, and then what we do is we do requirements analysis, right? We create a system selection matrix, which basically has all the features of the system that we need, right? Based on the user requirements. And then we add weights to each of the system requirements. We score each system against the system selection framework. We choose a system that's already developed, and then we implement it, maintain, and staff it, right? All right. So we want to look at um, how to make businesses more effective. Yeah. Um, how we can improve organizational processes by improving efficiency or effectiveness, right? And of course, efficiency can be use of less human resources, use of less time, which typically translates to less human resources as well, right? How to speed up the process, how to make it end earlier, start earlier, and deliver more quickly to the customer, right? And so that's on the kind of efficiency side. And then on the effectiveness side, we look at sort of reducing defect rates, reducing defective, like I was saying in class yesterday, if you're making biryani, maybe 10 out of 100 biryani gets spoiled and you have to throw it away in the garbage. We're going to look at the process of how to ensure that you're throwing away less biryani, which is revenue, right? Which is more revenue and also less wasted expense, right? All right. We're going to practice a review for ranking systems according to the organizational objectives. So sometimes you rank systems based on which system has the most number of features that you need. And typically you will do that when money is not a problem. Then you just want the best system possible. But if money is an issue, then um, you may look for systems that fall within a price range, or if it's more about maximizing system dollars, then you may want to select the system that gives you more features per $1,000, right? So different ways of selecting the systems. And of course, as I said, we're going to look at implementing. All right, so what are we going to look at? So we're going to understand and explore IS consulting as a career and a lifestyle. It's much more than a career, it's a lifestyle because you travel a lot. Typically, time at the home office is basically time you're not making money for the company, right? So it's a traveling job. It really is a traveling job, right? And it's a sales job because typically you're trying to sell clients more services. You're trying to get them to implement more systems, to use more of your company time, right? So in a way, a consultant is like a lawyer because they're always looking at increasing the billable hours, right? Um, and the more you're out there is typically the more billable hours. Yes, you get billable hours working at home or in the office as well, but most of your billable hours will be meeting with clients, right? All right. We're going to communicate with high impact, create effective reports, lead professional and effective presentations, meetings, and teleconferences. So, and of course, we also have to develop and maintain client relationships, right? Because the idea here is we have to communicate effectively. The more effectively you communicate, is the clearer your message, the more quickly it's understood, the more convincing it is, and the more likely that the client will use your advice and use more of your advice in the future. Because remember, a consultant is also a salesperson, right? All right. And then, of course, you have to communicate effectively just to be convincing, to have a good reputation out there, so clients can refer you to other potential clients, etc., etc. And just general talk good things about you. You need to be able to sell decision makers on the acquisition of new eyes, right? We have eyes that sometimes it goes out of date in 2 years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 20 years, right? Depends on what industry you're in, right? But the point is, you have to be a salesperson who can sell decision makers on the idea that they need information systems and that your company should be the one to implement, right? And of course, these I's are all about, as we said, increasing efficiency or effectiveness. We're also going to learn how to draw business process diagrams, also known as BPM, right? And it's very like a flow chart, except that we have something called swim lanes, where the activities related to a specific department are in a specific swim lane going across the business process model, right? All right, very good. We're also going to do business process reengineering, which is where you look at the business process and then you say to yourself, how can I infuse computer systems into this process to make it faster, more effective, less defective, take less time, end sooner, deliver products to the client more quickly, right? Um, and we look at that. And then, of course, you create a revised business process diagram. You're going to understand the advantages and disadvantages of different approaches, such as waterfall and agile. Again, there are similarities the core part of the thing is very similar to systems analysis and design. And in systems analysis and design, we look at, we have different approaches. Waterfall is where you do all of one stage before you do all of the next stage before all of the next stage. Right? You finish one stage before you move on to the next stage. With agile, what you're doing is taking one major feature of the system at a time. You go through the stages for that one feature, then you take another feature of the system, right? So, for example, if you're doing registration, grading, homework management, grades management, providing comments. You take one thing at a time, right? And that is submit homework. So you do the requirements analysis, you do the system requirements, you do the coding, you test the code, you implement the code, and then you go on to the next feature, right? So with waterfall, it's like stage, all of one stage, and all of one stage, and all of the other stage, right? With uh with agile, which you might know as rapid prototyping. It's more of a spiral. It's more of a spiral, right? Okay, this camera is tricking me. Yeah, anyway, spirals. It's spirals, right? It starts with a core feature inside the system, and then you spiral out. You keep creating more and more features, right? But you keep going through the same process as waterfall with one feature at a time. All right. So we're going to also do cost benefit and feasibility analysis, right? So in other words, we're going to look at the cost of the system, the benefits of the system. We're going to look at whether the system is feasible based on the benefits that it affords, right? Versus the cost. And then we're going to look at return on investment, meaning for each dollar that you spend, what percent, what's the return? You get $1.10 back, $1.20, $1.30, right? If you're getting back $1.30 for each dollar spent on the system, then your ROI is 30%, right? And that's extremely critical. Yeah. All right, we're going to develop user and system requirements according to key performance indicators, right? And so a key performance indicator is a measure. An indicator is a measure, right? So a performance indicator is a measure of performance, and it can be something like how many units are produced per hour, um, how much human resources used to create a product, right? What's the cost of making a product overall? How long does it take to make a product, right? These are performance indicators, and the key simply means that you can directly translate these performance indicators into profitability, right? So you have other indicators like customer satisfaction. You have things like employee satisfaction, which goes towards employee retention. Customer satisfaction means you're likely to buy the product again. But the key performance indicators are based on delivering one product at a time, yeah, and seeing how well we're delivering that one product on average. All right, very good. We're going to create a request for information, which is a list of features of the system which are mandatory. Things like, the system vendor must meet certain government regulations based on the industry. They must have been in business for 5 to 10 years. They must have come with recommendations from other clients. The security must be excellent. Things that are just absolutely necessary for the system to be successful. And then, of course, we make an RFP, which is a list of the system requirements, and we basically sort of weight those system requirements before we put them on the RFP. And then basically, we can then score systems according to how well they provide those features, and then that the weights times the level of importance tells you how well the system does the job. All right, we're going to implement and test systems using different approaches. Well, no, we're not actually going to implement and test systems. We're going to learn how to implement and test systems, right? Phased, pilot, parallel, plunge. Different ways of implementing systems which vary in cost, but also vary in risk. You're probably familiar with the concept of parallel implementation, which is the most expensive. Everybody in every single person in the company is using the old system and the new system at the same time for a year or so. You're putting data into both systems, and you're constantly checking to see whether the new system gives the same totals and summaries as the old system. That means the new system is accurate, right? That's of course very expensive because everybody in the company is doing double work. Then of course there's plunge, where you stop using the old system at December 31 and you start using this new system on January 1st of the next year. Super, super risky, right? But the cheapest, obviously. Um, but it has some benefits because sometimes your old system is just not really usable. It's useless and it's inaccurate. So there's not much point, sort of testing the new system against the old system. All right, very good. We're going to look at job descriptions for the systems personnel, IT manager, IT director, CIO, business systems analyst, right? Because now that we implement a new system, we're typically going to be using more IS resources to manage that system, right? So we need to be able to make job descriptions. And this is something which management consultants do all the time, but it's also part of the information systems consulting job, right? And finally, we're going to look at developing terms of use. We should all be aware of terms of use. It's the agreement that you sign when you use a computer system or a website, right? The website says, okay, use the website, bear in mind that these conditions apply, right? And that usually includes data use policy, right? We're going to make acceptable use policy, right? Which typically is inside the company for employees, whereas terms of use are typically for customers. We're going to make service level agreements. So our system vendors, our cloud service provider, right? The system vendor How quickly must they respond when there are problems with the system? You know, who should be, who should be responsible for escalation? Um, what is the uptime, the sort of guaranteed uptime, or you could call it systems reliability, right? Meaning so much percent of the time the system should be up, running, and available, and also efficient, right? So things like that will be in your service level agreement. And then things like privacy policy, which is how they use the customer data, whether they can share it, analyze it, use it to market to you, send you emails, this kind of thing. And then finally, help desk policies in terms of how you report problems to the help desk, how the problems get routed to technicians or systems people, how they get escalated up the chain of command, right? This camera is reversed. Yeah, but anyway, okay. So, and sort of what is the time for resolution expected for each type of problem, and then who it goes to. All right, we're gonna look where there's no textbook. I looked extensively. I could not find a textbook. So we're using selected sources from CIO.com, Harvard Business Review, HuffPost Technology, Wall Street Journal, Gartner Group, right? Which is a very, very famous systems consulting firm. They usually sort of lay out what's happening in technology at each period. KPMG, Deloitte, McKinsey. Well, that's not McKinsey, it's McKinsey. Sorry about that, right? IBM, Microsoft, and other sort of giants in the IS industry. We can use sources from actual uh, IT industry folks because when they're huge, they tend to present more of a sort of overview of how things work. So, for example, IBM has these things called white papers, which is a sort of general approach to some new technology or some new approach to managing technology, right? IBM has sold off their hardware, right? They sold off their hardware, well, they sold off their PCs to Lenovo, and they're only pretty much they're only doing consulting now. Yeah. And so they take a very consulting approach. So they have white papers and red papers, which they're not IBM focused. They're industry focused. They're focused on helping you to learn how to manage properly, right? Um, so, it's like IBM, Microsoft, these people, they're trying to sort of um, transcend being a simple system vendor, and they're trying to become sort of IT stalwarts, sort of lighthouses in the industry. All right. Then you have your College of Business vision statement, mission statement, right? As said, we were supposed to have course orientation yesterday. That was an absolute mess, right? Um, and I'm going to call myself out. I'm going to call myself, right? Yeah, you couldn't. Uh, I'm kind of a brutally honest person sometimes, most times. Yeah, you couldn't afford to do that as a consultant. Yeah, what happened yesterday wouldn't work with clients. So I apologize that it happened. I'm not making fun of it or making light of it, but yeah. Some of the things I tell you, it's gonna be a do as I say, but not as I do, because I'm definitely not perfect, right? But yeah, anyway, sorry, and thanks for joining me again today. And of course, if you weren't able to join, you'll be able to watch this later on. All right. So requirements of online suicide. Check your email, AUM email, a couple times per day. Keep up with announcements. View, study, and review course materials and recordings the same week. Submit assignments on time and vigorously participate in discussions. Discussions provide an opportunity for what they call a presence, which is feeling like you're part of a group. You're not just there sitting at home by yourself, logging in and interacting with this cold, hard canvas, right? You feel like you're surrounded by other learners, you're interacting with them, you're kind of doing the journey together, right? The whole thing of companionship and comradeship and sort of community is extremely important in pretty much all aspects of life, including learning, right? When you just feel like you're out there by yourself, it's very lonely and it's very easy to fall away. All right. Then you have your ICE program goals and objectives, minimum technology, student support. I should mention that we have disability accommodations. There is a center for disability services, and you can go to them if you have any sort of learning disability. If you're feeling depressed and you can't manage your work, somebody has died and you need extra time to do your work, you need them to advocate for you for a more human approach to grading you and managing your homework, then these people are there to help you. And they will advocate to the professors, they will make a case to the professors to help you, right? And to be more accommodating, right? And we have to do this by federal law. We're not doing you a favor. We're required to do this by federal law. Americans with Disability Act. All right. Then, of course, there's academic support from Warhol, academic success, um, there's student services and resources in the student resources on Canvas. It's one of the could be the first or second module in Canvas. Really wish I was able to show you these things. I'm really sorry that I'm still struggling with Canvas. I went to a training course last week. Well, the week before. Yeah, last week, but yeah, I'm still trying to get used to it. I'm sorry. Academic dishonesty. That's a big no-no. No, don't do it. No, just no. No, don't. You may get away with a few instances in college. I doubt you'll get away with one instance in the workplace, right? Your professor is here managing 100 of you, 50 of you, right? 75, whatever. Your professor will miss a few times when you plagiarize or cheat or whatever. Your co-workers who are competing for the next promotion, right? 10 people on your team, all of them want to be the manager next year or next 2 years. They will be watching you like a hawk. Mess up, slip up, and you're out of there. So I strongly recommend that you practice to have academic integrity while you're here, right? You're not going to get away with it out there, right? I don't want anybody losing their career and ending up in disgrace because they do the wrong things out there. So practice academic integrity. Not for me, not for the university, but for yourself. Hope everybody really understands this important thing. People, once you lose your integrity, it's like when you lose your integrity, when you lose enough of your integrity, because nobody has 100% integrity, but lose enough of your integrity and you basically stop being a human being. That's basically how that works, right? All right. Skip classroom behavior. Academic grading is dictated by AUM academic policies. Incomplete grades, there's a thing on that. Read it from the syllabus. Important to know. Grade disputes. The grade I give you is not the absolute final say. You can challenge it, but unless it's a very really good reason, uh, typically a reason like I did not grade your work, right? Then it's yeah. Um, it has to be a really, really good reason. Yeah. You can't challenge the grade, for example, because the teacher was not a good teacher. Yeah, that doesn't work. Um, the teacher didn't like you. No, that's not going to work either. But obviously, if you can prove bias, if the teacher has said or done things that clearly indicate bias against you, then yeah, you probably have a case, especially if you have documentation or witnesses, right? But yeah, my recommendation is just basically work hard, try to pass the course the first time. There's our netiquette policy, there's our AUM help desk, netiquette in terms of how to communicate. And this is going to be extremely important for a consultant, right? Because you're going to be a voice, you're going to be a light, you're going to be a tower of, sort of, you got to be an example, right? You walk into client meetings and they instantly admire you and want to be like you. right? Consultants are people that are professionals that people dream of being. They're the cream of the crop, right? So you got to communicate clearly, um, professionally, etc., etc. So read the etiquette policy. Tells you all about communicating. All right. There's the academic, there's this specific course policies. Take a read of that as well. Exams policy, makeup policy, extra credit policy. Pretty much the same as all the other courses. And I borrowed some of these policies from one of the professors. So more than likely the same as you've seen in other courses, right? Um, all right, let's look at grades. Discussions are 10%. So you will have, I think it's something like 5 or 6 discussions that you want to participate on. The first discussion that is available right now and is due next week is who is the IS consultant? And I will be making a recording. There is already a PowerPoint in module 1 on who is the IS consultant. I will be doing well, sort of a lone presentation, right? I'll just be recording myself talking about the PowerPoint, right? So look out for that today or tomorrow. So that discussion is available already, and discussions generally are worth 10%. The final exam is worth 20%. Now the group project, you will see that group project is worth 70%. Because consultants execute, right? You have to be demonstrating value at every stage of the project. Yeah. Clients need to be seeing the value you're creating the minute you walk through that door, the moment you open your mouth, right? With the first question you ask, right? With the first time you make a suggestion or a recommendation, right? So the project is 70%. Because the analysis and documentation is 60%, and then you're going to make a group presentation video that's worth 10%. Now, the project is actually worth more than 70% because in reality, I'd say 80% of this 20% for the final exam is about the project. Is stuff that you learn about the project. So I'm going to say that really understanding the project, doing the project well, executing it, is going to be worth north of 80%, probably 85% of the course. This course is all about this project, right? The final exam is literally simply going to ask you about how to approach aspects of the project, right? So project is extremely important. All right. And then finally, the schedule is there. It's missing one thing though. You have to submit a company overview. Now, let's talk about the project. So you're going to join groups of 5. How I've set up the Canvas groups is that the limit is 5 people. Then as I said before, I will take groups of 5 and join them to make groups of 10, right? So we'll have 5 groups in all, because I think we have 50 or something like that students in the class. All right, good. One of you needs to have an assistantship with a department on campus. See, because what's going to happen is you're going to approach your supervisor, right, who is an employee of AUM, and you're going to ask them for permission to study the systems that you use in that department. So we're doing a live thing here. We're doing as close to reality as possible. We're not looking at cases. These are cases you will write yourself based on knowledge you acquired about departments within AUM. All right, so I want that to sink in, right? So everybody in your group, make sure to join a group that has somebody with an assistantship, or it can also be a working warhawk, right? Because then that person will get permission to study the systems that they use or the general system that the department uses. Now, normally when I've taught this course before, it has been a whole company. and students have had to analyze the core process by which that company delivers value. In this particular case, I'm simply going to allow you to study a department. So it's been much more difficult in the past when I've taught sports before, right? I made people analyze a whole company. They had to select the core system, the main system for that company, and they had to do a very thorough, in-depth analysis of that company, right? All right, very good. So you're getting off easy. I hope you understand this. All right. So you're going to have several deliverables. One is the one is the company overview, which is actually going to be due in another 2 weeks, but I left it off the syllabus. Sorry about that. I'll put it on the syllabus, right? All right, good. Then you're going to have the business process model is the next deliverable, and that's the business process model of the current process. You're simply going to document the way the process works in that department right now. Then a few more of your team members, right, are going to few more members of your team are going to do a revised business process model. So in other words, looking at features that are available in systems on the internet, you will see what are some things that systems can actually do to improve these processes. And they can also be theoretical improvements where you say, okay, right now we are getting student information from a filing cabinet. Well, obviously, if we had a database that we could access these records from, then it would not only be faster and easier, but also less error prone, right? So yeah, so some of it is going to be, some of the revised business process is going to be based on your imagination. Some of it is going to be based on systems that are actually available, right? All right. Then we're going to look at key performance indicators, which are driving the business process reengineering, right? As we said, these are signs of performance. They're measures of performance that we can actually record, right? Whether it's number of units dealt with or number of students registered per hour, right? Um, um, the error rate for registering students, right now, we have 100 students, 98 of them get the right classes, or 90 of them get the right classes, right? Hopefully, that's not the case. And you want to decrease that error rate from 10% to 2% so that 98% of them will get the right classes, right? From that, we'll generate user requirements, which is basically they're like somebody's job description. They're the things that users do day to day. They're the actual parts of somebody's job. These are user requirements. So the user requirements are simply ways of computerizing things that people do, but they're literally just based on somebody's job, right? But the user requirements are based on the reimagined business process, not the current business process, right? Because we're not implementing a system to work exactly the same way that it works right now. Not much point in that, right? So we have user requirements, which users will typically understand and recognize and be able to critique. They can help you with the user requirements, right? They will be understandable by user. They will describe a user's job, right? Well, several users' jobs. Next comes the system requirements. Now, system requirements are simply the user requirements broken down into very specific things that the system can do. So a user requirement may be ability to grade uh, homework, right? Then the system requirements will be things like student is able to upload, well, professor is able to describe homework. Student is able to upload homework. Professor is able to view homework and make notes. Professor is able to view homework and assign grade, right? And then user is able to view feedback. These are very specific things that the system should allow you to do. You can literally see the system doing it. So they're much more detailed than user requirements. much more specific, and they literally describe things the system itself is allowing you to do, right? So the user requirements obviously are user focused. They're based on the user's job. The system requirements are based on features of the system, right? Very specific things that you can identify. Now, this is very important because when we're ranking and scoring systems, we rank them based on specific features that they provide, right? Very specific features that they provide, right? Teacher can Teacher is able to upload video feedback, right? Teacher is able to um, record audio feedback. That's a different feature, right? Um, and this can actually be demonstrated by the system vendor. Okay, we're going to talk about it more, obviously. Obviously, this is not a class on system requirements. This is just a very quick, introduction to system requirements. After this, we're going to look at the feasibility analysis. So we have all these features, right? There's these 3 or 4 top systems out there. How feasible is it to actually implement these systems, right? Is it going to generate return on investment um, based on the cost of the system, based on the time taken to train people? Will it actually improve the process? And will that improvement in the process translate to dollars and cents, right? Things like having employees enjoy their job, that's great, that's lovely. Things like
Customers
customers like talking
to
to
customer
customer
service.
service, that's
Beautiful.
beautiful. But in the feasibility analysis, we're looking at numbers. How these improved processes generate more cash or save on cash. So you have to spend less, right? We're looking at hard numbers here, right? At the end of the day, they say that money is the only thing you can truly measure in business, right? And as professor of mine long ago when I was doing my master's, he said, well, basically, money is the only thing you can measure in business, and that's why accountants rule the world, right? See, everybody else is improving things. That's great, but we have to be able to measure the improvement, and that's especially where a systems consultant comes in, is being able to quantify the level of improvement that the business will experience in monetary terms. Because as a department manager, you're given a budget. You have to select projects to spend on from that budget. And to be a good manager, right, you have to select the projects that are most feasible, the most cost effective, that return the biggest return on investment, right? And so we'll look at this feasibility analysis aspect. Next comes, now, okay, so basically deliverables, the next three deliverables, we will basically use templates, right? So we'll use a lot of templates. There are a lot of templates out there on the internet, right? Well, maybe not the implementation plan, right? Where we discuss whether we're going to do plunge because we can afford to take the risk, or parallel because it's a hospital and we can't afford to risk one life. Yeah, that's going to be a write up by a few of the team members, in terms of why we're selecting this implementation plan. But the job descriptions and the user facing documents are another set of deliverables. They're the last 2 deliverables, right? And basically, there's a million job descriptions out there for a million different jobs, right? So we can simply take job descriptions, modify them, and customize them to our need. And then you have your user facing documents, terms of use, acceptable use policies, service level agreements, privacy policy, health risk procedures. All of those, there's millions of templates out there. You can simply take them and customize them, right? And simply explain, why you use this particular template, why you made those particular changes, right? And this, of course, is why these last 2 modules are basically these last two develop these last 2 deliverables are worth basically 5% each, right? Whereas the really big deliverables are going to be your business process model, KPIs, and user and system requirements, right? Yeah, which are the core of the project. All right, so we have a few months to get this done. It's very doable, but you've got to start early, right? In the past, I've made the mistake of letting people submit an entire project at one time, but yeah, I've come to realize that's a bad idea. Yeah, because everybody's scrambling at the last minute. So you're going to be, well, what I normally did was I allowed people to submit drafts of the project, okay? 3 drafts throughout the semester, right? And every time they added a deliverable, they added it to the draft. This time we will have specific dates for each deliverable, right? And the dates for each deliverable are listed on the syllabus, yeah? Now, let's talk about the teamwork again. So I need people who want to be team leaders to send me their resume. But team leaders, beware. Most team leaders will not make better grades than their team. You are responsible for the team. You cannot be making an A when most members of your team are making a B. That does not make sense. You cannot be the manager of a underperforming department and then get promoted, right? This is what we're saying. So I learned some lessons when I was teaching leading innovation last semester, right? I understand the culture, right? You're all from far away. I was a foreign student as well, by the way, so I know what it's like to be a foreign student, right? I'm not unsympathetic. I'm very, very sympathetic, right? Which is why I have a sort of universal policy for all the courses I teach that if you are making a C or D at the end of the course, I will give you opportunities to make a B, right? But not opportunities to go from a B to an A. Not if you're making a B, you're stuck at a B. If you're making a C or a D, I will give you work to do over to bring you up to a B. I hate failing foreign students. In the year and semester I've been here, I've probably failed between maybe 5 to 10. I had no choice. They just did not do the work, right? And that's 5 to 10 out of maybe like 400. Yeah, students that I've taught. So be clear about this when you send your resume to me to be the team leader or to be considered to be team leader. I will punish you if your team is underperforming and you're giving everyone full marks, right? You will have 2 attempts at resubmitting, well, 2 attempts at submitting the deliverable, right? 2 times. 1 time for feedback, then next time is the final time you get to submit it, right? If you are telling me that everybody put 100% into this deliverable, giving you 60% for that deliverable, you are a bad leader. I can't really make it more clear than that. Because what you're saying is everybody gave their best, but they still came up short. They still failed to meet the requirements. So that's a leadership problem. I mean, I don't see what else it could be. So you are going to stop being friends while you're doing this project. Your roommates, yeah, you have to stop being roommates. Just ignore each other for the rest of the semester. If your roommate is given 50%, you need to put 50% score for that roommate, right? Oh, let me back up a little bit. The team leader is actually the one who is going to be giving everyone a grade in the team. So I will be giving the team a grade, then it will split up based on the percentage contribution from each person, right? Right? And if I'm getting work that is worth 60% and everybody is putting in 100%, that means you're doing some real horrible leadership, right? I'm saying this from now because I don't know who the group leaders are going to be. So, I mean, there's no way for you to see it in a sort of personal light, right? I can't be implying anything about anybody at this point, right? Because I don't know who is going to allow themselves to be group leaders. But understand something. Being group leader in this course is going to cost you dearly if you are ineffective. So bear that in mind when you submit your resume to be team leader. All right? All right, people, that's basically all I have today. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? All right, people, you have my phone number. It's on the homepage. It's not on the syllabus, but it's on the homepage, right? Call me if you have any questions, concerns, problems, doubts, anxieties, anything at all. I'm here to make sure that you are successful. But I can only do that by being, well, basically being tough on you, being strict, right? Forcing you to do your work, right? In the leading innovation project, there was a lot of dead weight, right? People weren't doing their work, but team leaders were still giving them 100%. Right. No, my job is to ensure that people are doing well, get rewarded with a good grade. People who are not doing their work should not get rewarded with a good grade. That's just my job, right? Um, my job is not really to be liked, maybe respected, maybe admired, but not to be liked, right? I'm doing you, I'm hurting you. I'm hurting you when I allow you to not do your work, but still get a good grade. I'm literally hurting you, right? I'm pretending to do my job, but I'm not really doing it. So this semester, I've come up with this new strategy that team leaders are going to suffer by their grade if they are producing substandard work, but they're not giving team members low marks to get them to step up to the plate and contribute so that the overall team output can be excellent. All right. So, yeah, it's a little bit of call it tough love. People, I'm going to add some announcements to sort of um, back up some of the things I'm saying so you have something to read as well as watch, right? I'm going to make announcements about the group composure. I'm going to make announcements about being team leader. Let me check something. I believe I posted the project rubric, which shows the percentage of the grade that you'll get for each deliverable. Um, Let me just double check whether I've posted that. Yeah. So that is like that tells you exactly what I'm asking for you. I'm also, by the way, going to post some examples of projects that people have done in the past to try to help you, right? So I'm going to give you some examples, but some of these examples will not be perfect. So you have to kind of look through the examples, right? Then I'm also going to give sort of my examples, right? So I'm going to show you examples from students at another university. I'm also going to give you my examples of how the intricate parts of each deliverable should be done, right? So you're going to get quite a few examples. So if you read the resources, you should be fine. Yeah, so any questions? People, don't be shy. Because that's one thing about a consultant. A consultant has to be firm, confident, commanding, right? When you speak, people listen. When you ask questions, people want to have the answer, right? When you appear in the room, all eyes are on you, right? You command attention. You have authority. You have presence, right? So yeah, there are no shy consultants, right? Or at least they don't last very long, right? So please don't be shy. Let me check here. Project. The project rubric is not there. I'm going to bring it over right now from. Let me see. I wonder if I can do it right now. So in case you have questions, you could actually ask me. Let me see if I can bring it over from the face-to-face course. Let me see if I can bring over some content. Sorry that I didn't bring it over before. That is my fault. Okay, let me do this. Let me create a module. Courses, online modules. People, you should be thinking of questions while I'm trying to upload this thing. So there's module 1, and then there's the PowerPoint, the IS consultant, showing some traits of a consultant. And then I'm going to put the consulting project. Then I'm going to upload the rubric. So you can see all the things that are detailed, list of the things that are involved. All right, so any questions? Consulting project. Let's see if we can get over to here. AUM teaching 6840. And then let's go to assignments, project, and then oh, I know why. Okay, good. So system implementation rubric, August 22. Or August 23. All right, so if you look at Blackboard, there is now a module called consulting project, right? And in it is the rubric. It shows you all the sections and all the deliverables and the details of the deliverables. So the next thing you're going to do is to find a project. You're going to find a department to study, and as I suggested, try to group up with somebody who has an assistantship or a working Warhawk situation, and then that person should try to convince their supervisor, because you're going to have to sell it, right? You have to sell them on the idea of letting them study the system to improve it. All right. So yeah, it's available. System implementation rubric August 23, right? And then yeah, so that's available. All right. You've had a bunch of time to come up with questions, but I still. Oh, it was there already, actually. It's August 22. Oh. Okay. Oh, it was already there. Okay. All right, people. I hear no questions, so I'm going to let you go. Let's see. Okay. Somebody said something. No, they didn't. All right, people. Well, thanks for joining. And then this recording will be available for viewing again. And then as I said, I'm also going to add some documentation and some announcements, right? So you have several sources to visit. For now, work on that discussion about who is the IS consultant. There is a PowerPoint on who is the IS consultant. You just have to talk about like one or two features of an IS consultant, and then work on getting permission to study a system in one of the departments that your group members um, are working in. Remember, forward resumes if you want to be a team leader, but remember, I'm going to hold you responsible for the performance of your team. All right, that's basically all I have for you today. Thanks for joining, and I'll have another video for you soon over the weekend on who is an IS consultant, right? And then every Thursday, I will post a video from the face-to-face class for you to watch and to understand the modules. And then, of course, like I said, there will also be tons of examples of how to work some of these things out. And then also, what they should look like. And there will also be some good projects from the past that I will post to kind of show you how the whole project should look. So no need to worry. All right. See you guys next week. Well, look out for another video next week. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.